point forward, it was a matter of saying, hey, let's see if Andy wants to be part of this, you know. And of course, he did an amazing job from the very beginning, but each year the band would get better and better and better and better, and that's what happens when you keep a chemistry together.
I've go to quite a few Gov't Mule shows, and I don't know if I'm right or not, but it seems to me that I've noticed some tunes from Tales of Ordinary Madness and Life Before Insanity creeping into the set lists a little more. Is that an indication that Gov't Mule might be revisiting some of the styles of their earlier material?
Yeah, whenever we go too long without visiting a certain era, we always like to go back and say, well, why don't we bring some of this stuff back? As far as Tales of Ordinary Madness, my solo record, you know, it was a long time before we started revisiting any of that stuff, and we finally did pull a few songs out here and there. All the stuff with Woody at one point or another, we have gone back and revisited. And recently we've been playing a lot of the old material, more so probably than any time in quite a while, because there's no brand new studio record, so to speak, and it's nice to kind of pull out a lot of the old stuff, both for ourselves and for the audience. And
it's nice to hear it again, let me tell you. Adam Lawson, your former guitar tech, asked, when you were on the Tales of Ordinary Madness tour, the tour bus narrowly averted a bad accident with a truck one night. Do you have any other stories of the road that you'd like to share that are maybe funny or scary that have happened in the last few years?
Nothing amazingly scary, thankfully. You know, there's a lot of near misses that take place on the road. You know, I mean, the odds are against you when you travel as often as we do, and as long as I've been doing it. But I've been very fortunate. Nothing I can think right off the top of my head that would qualify.
Well, you've got Mountain Jam coming up, and we've got a question from Alex Garay, the guitar player from Buzz Universe, who's going to be playing up there, and they're one of Jersey's favorites. Local guys from Linden who are making it big, I hope. And Alex asks, how do you manage to be everywhere with all the bands and the sit-ins that you do with other bands? Is there a Warren Haynes clone somewhere? No. If there were, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. It'd be confidential information. Yeah, it'd be top secret. I hear that. Now, of all your acoustic guitars, which one do you consider to be your baby? I have a couple of Martin guitars that I really like a lot, and I have a Santa Cruz Tony Rice model that I really like a lot, and I recently got some Gibson Custom Shop acoustic guitars that I'm really starting to enjoy. You know, acoustic is a whole different world for me, so I'm still in the process of trying to handpick some guitars that I love as much as I do some of my electrics, and the process is coming along great, but you know, a year from now I might be able to answer that question completely differently. Well, you know, I've seen a couple of your acoustic sets, like last year at Farm Aid and Bonnaroo, and I'm just wondering, have you considered doing a Gov't Mule Unplugged type of recording? Well, we've never done one officially, although if you go to Mule.net and specifically muletracks.com, which you can get to through Mule.net, there have been a couple of shows here and there where we did at least the whole first set predominantly acoustic, one of which was the Fox Theater in Boulder a few years ago, one of which was DAR Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. a few years ago. And all that stuff is downloadable, so it's live performances, but they're acoustic versions of a lot of the material. And some of my solo acoustic shows are available as well. A couple that I would recommend would be the second night of Jam Cruise, the Belly Up in Aspen, Colorado. There's some
some cool ones floating around that I think turned out really nice.
Yeah, I've heard the entire recording you did at Atomic Productions back in Clinton many years ago, and that's a phenomenal recording. I know you put some of that.
That was a really special night. I have fond memories of that.
Yeah, I know some of that's on the Lone EP, and that's readily available for people out there. Now, what was your introduction to slide playing, and how much of an influence was Duane Allman compared to, say, traditional bottleneck players such as Elmore James and guys like that?
Well, Duane Allman was a big influence on me early on, both as a guitar player and as a slide player. And I think when I first started tapping into slide guitar via people like him and Johnny Winter and, of course, Muddy Waters and Elmore James, eventually Ry Cooder and Lowell George and David Lindley, I started playing in open tunings first, and then I decided to try standard tuning, which maybe I had even tried standard in the beginning, but it didn't make any sense, so I moved to an open tuning. And then I realized that if I went back to standard tuning and taught myself how to do it, I would be able to have a different voice on slide guitar than some of the people that I grew up listening to who only played in open tunings. Duane Allman played in open E all the time, and with the exception of the song Dreams and some of the slide in Mountain Jam, every other thing he ever played was in an open tuning and not in standard tuning. He was a very big influence, and I guess my slide playing started, I must have started playing slide when I was around 14 or something, but I didn't get really serious about it till I was in my early 20s, and I decided to kind of focus on it and realized how few great slide players were out there, and that with some hard work I could kind of establish my own voice.
And surely you have. Now, when writing songs, how do you understand the creative process? And secondly, can you explain where the music comes from within you?
I don't know if I could explain it. I think that we're all a product of all of our influences, no matter how big or small. And so you take everything that you've ever heard, even some things that you heard subliminally, and they find their way into your music somehow. Obviously, some of the influences are more obvious and more intentional, but we're all a product of the environment that we've grown up in. For me, my first love was soul music. I was also very much into the singer-songwriter thing when I was growing up, so the acoustic side of me has always been there. But, of course, the rock and roll side of me was a big part. After discovering rock and roll for a few years, of course, I started studying blues and jazz and a lot of other types of music. So I figure as a writer, I'm influenced by all my favorite writers, as a player by all my favorite players, and as a singer by all my favorite singers. And those lists don't always overlap. In some cases they do, but I think the fact that I do all three of those things makes sure that I have a very large list of influences to choose from.
Now, how do you think music has played a role in our cultural evolution?
I think, for one, that music is one of the few things in this world that is a positive win-win for everyone. There's no way that you could turn music into something negative. And I think if you take it further than that, and if you strip it all the way back to the beginning, music was a form of communicating, and for some of us, it still is a form of communication. At the very least, it's a way of tapping into something emotionally that is an escape from the negatives in the world. And one of the beautiful things about it is that nobody can tell you what's good or bad. That's up to each individual to decide. It's not like a ball game where you're keeping score. It's if it moves you, then it's good, and if it doesn't